Thank you all for joining me. My name is Mocha. This is the Gut Wrench Podcast. 1 second and I'll pull up the official episode count. Also, for whatever reason, I keep getting these people who want me to pay them so that they can promote my podcast. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, thank you for, seeing as though that you're asking me to pay you to promote my podcast and get me over what they claim is 60,000 or whatever, listeners a week, downloads a week. Welcome to episode 65. Sorry, I had to kind of distract you there. This one guy, this past week, as a matter of fact, went ahead and decided that it was a good idea to message me and tell me that for $130, I got the DM right here, for $250 for a month, he would promote my podcast. And he has a little over 860 followers, and I have a little under 500 followers rather. So, we're about on the same level. And despite his profile saying that he's a professional podcast promoter, and him having as little followers as he does, he told me that he, quote, promises that I would get within 1,500 to 3,000 downloads in the preceding months, or in the preceding month. And I was just like, no, thank you. He's like, I'll give you a free day. Wow. How generous of you. $250, guys. That's what we're talking about right now. But we won't be talking about that for a little while longer. 2 more things I must say before the episode begins. 1, this episode is not about professional wrestling. So breathe a sigh of relief if you're into more entertaining content that's not wrestling, and I put not wrestling in air quotes because to me that's the pinnacle of entertainment. That's great storytelling when it's done right, when it's done correct, and when you can put together a story over a period of time that doesn't get boggled down by something that's not as entertaining as it looks entertaining and then it's not, or it's entertaining on paper but it's not. You really have to try to sit there and then say, does this really look as entertaining as I want it to be? Does this really look as good? So, today's episode is not about professional wrestling, and I'm doing that to prove a point. And I got the idea from, wouldn't you know it, SNL, Saturday Night Live. Watching Saturday Night Live as much as I have, and watching some of their skits on like YouTube and everything like that, I don't even have any notes in front of me. I'm going to be improvising today's episode, believe it or not. So if you've watched the show Whose Line Is It Anyway with Drew Carey, that guy from 2.5 Men, who plays Judith's now husband, not her ex-husband, but her, quote, now husband, Herb or whatever his name is. Drew Carey, Saturday Night Live, and what's his name? Wade Brady, rather. Either it's Wayne Brady or it's Wade Brady. One of the two, but Anyway, he's the host of Who Wants to Be a Million. Almost nicked that one in the butt. Anyway, he's the host of Who Wants to Make a Deal. I love that show. Everything about it is just hilarious. Even Family Guy made fun of it. There's a part wherever he's on Who Wants to Make a Deal or something like that, and then for whatever reason they come up to Stewie from Family Guy, who's on Who Let's Make a Deal, not Whose Deal. Okay. Anyway, he's on Let's Make a Deal, Stewie is, and he has paperclip and rouge on him, and he asks him, Brian asks Stewie, why do you have paper clips and rouge on you? And then he's like, because we're on the game show, and he tweeted about it or something like that. And then he goes, okay, well, you just won $7,000 or something like that. And then he goes, yes, now I can buy more purses. He says, why would you need another purse? He says, for the paper clips and rouge. So he's going to buy more paper clips and rouge in... you'd have to, I guess, see it online. I'm hearing crickets right now. That way that, because I just told the first joke and now you guys are like, the cricket, the lone cricket in the audience. But anyway, I got this idea from, just basic stand-up comedy routine. I thought that I would do it, and like I said, to prove a point, there will be a point made by the end of this episode. Don't you worry. But I thought, every week I go on and on and on and on and on and on, just to try to drive home and hammer home that my main mission in life, which has been to bury Kevin Owens. And I hope that I'm doing a good job, but, I don't want to come off as just some grumpy old guy who's on the internet talking about like, he didn't even do it right. That's not funny, guys. Why are you praising him for something that he didn't even do right? But it to an extent, and to an ultraviolet extent, it makes me mad. It makes me upset, and it delivers a crushing blow to my heart to see people who are constantly... I'm not here to ruin anybody's happiness. That's not really my main goal. But to see people who are constantly shoving it down your throat, that they feel as though that even though they're wrong, they're going to die on that hill. And they are wrong about Kevin Owens, about Sami Zayn. And that's great that they want to die on that hill, but I just wish that they would stay on the hill and die, not really shove it in my face that they're happy that mediocrity runs amok in WWE or in wrestling overall, That's the hill that they want to die on. More power to them. Also, like I said, there's two things that I wanted to talk about, and that was number one, the fact that today's episode will not be about professional wrestling. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was, okay, so I'm doing a review probably next week on this little gaming device that I bought. It's a USB, basically a HDMI, not a USB, that you plug into your TV, and it's called GameStick Lite 4K, and I got it on Amazon a while back, and I just had it sitting here in my room and decided, you know what, I'm going to plug it in today. Went to plug it in, and it doesn't work. It's not that it doesn't work. I had to read something online. It came with an instruction booklet that I should have read on that. It has to charge. I haven't charged it, so I'm going to go ahead and charge it, and then I'm going to plug it into my TV and see if it works, and for that matter, what kind of games are on it, said to have over, one of the reviews said 60,000 games, another one said 80,000, and another said 140,000 games. Almost said dollars. just by saying numbers, I thought to myself, oh, okay, I should end this sentence by saying dollars, but then I remembered that I was talking about video games. Anyway, that's not the point. Matter of fact, none of this has a point, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Keep in mind that it's completely improvised, and I'm going to try not to prematurely laugh at anything that I say that may or may not be too ridiculous, or for that matter, improvised comedy, mad-libbing practically everything that I'm saying. So I'm going to start by telling you a story. A story about me. I came home from school one day, and I was walking to the bus stop, and the next thing that I knew, I seen a cockroach, and I thought to myself, oh man, those are nasty, dirty, diabolical creatures, and I wanted nothing to do with that spider. So I decided that it was a good idea to just walk past the centipede that I previously mentioned in this story. And the next thing I knew, I seen that dog walking across the road, and it got hit by a car. And I thought to myself that I could have stopped that. I could have, done something about that. I could have whistled at that cockroach, centipede, dog. I could have said something to stop it from getting hit by the car. And then I seen the ice cream truck come my way, and I didn't have 50 cents on me. All I had was $2, and I thought to myself, what a sad world that we live in, where all you have is 25 cents, and all I needed was a quarter. So I asked one of the children who was stopping by, and I asked if possibly she had a quarter that I could use, and she told me in a deep, manly voice that her last quarter was spent in that Coke machine. And I looked at the train going by, and I realized that I didn't have a ticket to ride on it. The only thing that I could think was, what a sad world that we live in, where you don't even have a quarter to ride the train. So I walked home that day, and I was sad because not only did the cockroach get ran over by a vehicle, but also the electronic train that I was trying to ride home that day, it didn't work, because the next person came by, put a quarter in the 25-cent slot and one of those grabbing machines, and the next thing that I knew, they were trying to grab their girlfriend a prize, but whenever they went to grab their girlfriend a prize out of one of those claw machines, it laughed at them whenever they put in their quarter. It went tee like the witch from the Wizard of Oz. And the next thing I knew, I was looking over at them while I was trying to walk home, and I forgot what I was doing. So of course, I walked in front of traffic by accident, of course. I would never do that on purpose. The next thing I knew, there was a guy in a blue Trailblazer walked out of his vehicle, and he looked at me. And then he said, "Girl, are you lost?" And I looked back at him, and he looks back at me, and I look back at him, and then I remembered that I had an air horn in my pocket. So I pull out this balloon, and then I start breathing into the balloon. And this man starts scratching his head, and in his yellow convertible, he went ahead and decided to jump back into it. And when he honked his horn, it sounded like the General Lee. The next thing that I knew, I woke up in the hospital, and I wondered, what am I doing here? What is the point of putting me in the hospital? And my mom came out of the bathroom, and so did the doctor. And the doctor told me that my mom just supplied him with some DNA evidence that was much needed. And my mom took a Sprite out of her purse, and she put it down on the table, and she opened it up, and then she told me to drink my Dr. Pepper because I was going to need my strength. The doctor said that he needed more tests, and he decided that it was a good idea to call in the nurse. He calls in the nurse, and then he tells me to get my test results. And whenever the nurse pulled up my test results, she told me that I scored a 75, which is below average. The next thing I knew, I was looking at the Red Bull that I was drinking, and it didn't look red at all. The only thing that I could remember is the color being a yellowish orange, and it was disgusting because my orange juice never looked that way. I put it down on the counter, and I realized something, that I wasn't in the hospital to begin with, and this entire thing was nothing more than a dream sequence. It would make more sense if it was a dream, to be honest, because I feel like that the first part of the story made absolutely no sense at all. But I woke up in the middle of the night, and I went to go get a glass of water. But little did I know that Ronald McDonald was at my house, and for some reason I kept hearing jingle bells, and I just kept looking at Ronald McDonald, who was in the corner, and he was giving me no indication that he was going to stop singing anytime soon. So I went and got a drink of water, and as soon as I turn on my water, blood from my faucet just starts pouring. And it was at this point that I realized that I was in the hospital, because I woke up and I was in the hospital. And the next thing I know, the teacher comes in to the hospital and starts to ask me intense questions, letting me know that there's a test Tuesday, and I better be ready for it. I better be damn ready for it, because the president will look at my results, and when he does, he's going to know that I've been a bad boy. And then all of a sudden I hear jingle bells, and the Burger King walks in. You know, the mascot for Burger King walks in to the hospital beside of the teacher, and they look at each other and they start kissing. I'm talking full on lip service, making out. And the next thing that I know, I'm looking up at the ceiling, and there's a Big Mac that falls from the sky, and it falls right in my arms. And then the police officer comes in and accuses me of stealing that Big Mac from that Burger King mascot. And the Burger King mascot can do nothing except sit there and laugh. This diabolical laugh, almost like he's some sort of demented clown man. And that's when Ronald McDonald turns into the Wendy's chick. I didn't know what to make heads or tails of. I just thought, there's no way that I'm awake right now. And what happened was, I woke up and I went to go get a drink of water at the hospital. As I stated, I was staying at the hospital. And the next thing I knew, someone rung a bell and said, order up. And I look over and Patrick Starr is flipping burgers. And Squidward was on the other side of the kitchen. And he was telling Patrick that he needed 2 Krabby Patties and a Burger King Deluxe cheeseburger. The next thing that I knew, I was on the floor laughing because Pepe Le Pew and Bugs Bunny were back there flipping burgers, and I didn't think that I'd ever see that before in my life. There's no way that you can tell me that Daffy Duck and the Thundercats back there were actually making cheeseburgers. And Scooby-Doo and Ronald McDonald come into the shot, and they start questioning me about where I've been. And there was a police officer who put handcuffs on me. And the next thing I knew, they turned to snakes and crawled up my arm. The only thing that I could think of was that this has to be a dream. And there's no way that any of this is real. And it all started whenever I was walking home from school that day. And it could have been avoided had I would have just saved that dog. But instead, this man almost ran me over. Somebody tried to hold me at gunpoint whenever I was in the bathroom. So I turned the sink on, right? Like I said, I was trying to go get a drink of water. I turned the sink on and then I go get me a drink of water and splash some water on my face because none of this, and I mean none of this, makes any sense whatsoever. And I know that. So, I heard a voice from beyond the grave say, "Are you crazy?" After I splashed myself twice. And I didn't know what to do, but I had an urging feeling to turn off the lights. So of course I turn off the lights, and I start hearing, "He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his." And then I said, "Hands?" And then I heard this man go, "Gah!" like that. And he shows up behind me and he's holding a lantern. And then he turns the light on. And then before he turns the light on, he says, "Run." Like that. But the bathroom door was locked. So how the hell am I supposed to run? And he only gave me 1.5 seconds to run. So the way I seen it, we were playing red light, green light. And the next thing I knew, we were playing follow the leader and Simon Says, but I couldn't play 3 games at one time. If you're playing red light, green light, Simon Says, and follow the leader, all of these require intensive concentration. And the only thing that I could concentrate on was the fact that I was being thrown in jail for a crime that I did not commit. And someone hit my dog while I was walking home from school, and I just seen Bugs Bunny flipping hamburgers at the Krusty Krab, and I still don't know how we got to this point. So I'm in the bathroom, right? And I'm doing the things that you do in the bathroom when all of a sudden I see 3 statues standing in front of me, and I don't understand what's going on. The only thing I know is that the last time that I seen 3 statues, or the last time that I've even heard about 3 statues standing in front of me, was a Doctor Who episode that I've never seen, but I've heard about on the internet, of course. And I knew that this was not a good thing. And plus, I don't know who Doctor Who is. I mean, that joke just writes itself. Let's be honest here. But, of course, I was standing there perplexed, and all of a sudden, a grenade gets thrown at my feet. So I thought that the logical thing to do was to eat that tangerine that I had in my back pocket. And the next thing I knew, I was in my hospital bed, and my mom was telling me to drink my blue Gatorade. And afterwards, that's exactly what I did. So I took a sip of my Dr. Pepper, and you'll never guess what happened next. You'll never guess. I turned on the TV, and wouldn't you know it, there's a fly in this room that turns the TV off. It literally lands on the button, turns it off. So I'm not even allowed to watch cartoons. And I told my mom to squash that fly, and she told me, "How dare you tell me to go die?" And then she walks out of the room and tells the doctor that I have severe anxiety, and then walks out of the hospital. The next thing I knew, Woody Woodpecker comes in with a mallet and starts laughing like, I guess, Woody Woodpecker laughs. And then Goofy comes in, and when Goofy comes in, everything just goes to hell. Because up until this point, everything started to make sense. You know, the riddle was finally starting to be solved, but the next thing I knew, Woody Woodpecker hits me upside the head with a mallet, and Goofy, every time that Woody Woodpecker hits me, starts saying, "Gosh, gosh." And those two things are uncharacteristic of both of them. So, of course, I dropped my Dr. Pepper on the ground, and I'm in the hospital with 2 Looney Tunes characters and a doctor, and I couldn't make heads or tails of anything that was happening to me right now. So, of course, the only thing that I could think to do was to go to the bathroom and get a drink of water. And while doing that, I ended up approached by the most bizarre thing you will ever see. So I'm in there, right? I'm in the bathroom, and I'm doing what people do in the bathroom, and the only thing that I can think of is cheeseburgers, right? And that's the first thing that comes to mind whenever you're in the bathroom. I know how it works. Let's play a little word association game. Whenever you go to the bathroom, cheeseburger, right? I mean, that's what makes the most sense. This is how I knew that I wasn't in a dream, wasn't dreaming anymore. Whenever I see a fish at my feet, and there's no water for miles, except for, the sink that I keep alluding to. I keep pour a glass of water, splash it on my face, and that's when things go to hell. So I was like, I'm not falling for that one again, So the only thing that I could think to do was to flush the fish down the toilet. And the next thing I know, this dog starts to bite me as I'm trying to pick it up. I'm trying to flush the damn dog down the toilet, and I can't even get a hold of the cat because it keeps running amok throughout the hospital bathroom. And I kid you not, that Scooby-Doo was looking at me, and he was singing his own theme song, and I thought that was the weirdest thing ever, because if anybody knows where Scooby Dooby Doo is, it's going to be Scooby Dooby Doo, you know. So why would he be asking, where are you? You know, that doesn't make any sense. And of course he needs some help from me, but I'm asking him, what does he need help with? And the next thing that I see is an anvil drop on his head. And I thought, there's no way. That's sexual harassment, you know? Like, you can't tell me that the sexual harassment lawsuits with Harvey Weinstein were true, but that was sexual harassment on a dog. And that's the craziest thing that I've ever heard of. Until I got out of the bathroom and I see this pig staring at me. And the next thing that I knew, I had two little girls looking at me singing that Eminem song, Rap God, simultaneously. And I couldn't understand a word that they were saying because they were speaking Hebrew and they were speaking it backwards. So I was under the impression that they were just singing a lullaby. What the fuck? And while singing this lullaby, that maybe they got tongue twisted or something, because the next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital and I had a tangerine in my pocket. So what's the logical thing to do whenever you have a tangerine in your pocket and you wake up in the hospital? Of course. So I went to the bathroom. And the next thing that I knew, I saw Mount Everest in the... I almost said window. God. In the reflection of the window. So I opened up the medicine cabinet, right? And I saw some Tylenol PM. And I went ahead and took 3 of them. And after that, I sipped a jar of honey, as you do while you're in the bathroom. Because whenever you're in the bathroom, everything is better in the bathroom. So I took 3 tablespoons of honey, and after that, I went to bed. You know, I thought that that's the logical thing to do. So whenever I go to sleep, I woke up, and the next thing that I knew, I was seeing pink elephants, purple spots, and I could barely breathe. The doctor told me, look dead at me, and then he told me that I'm pregnant. And after that, he just walked out of the room. He lit a cigarette, which you're not allowed to do in the hospital. I mean, everybody knows in a bouncy house, you can't light a cigarette. But whenever he did that, he walked out of the room. Thank goodness, because I don't like the smell of tangerines anyway. And he told the nurse to come in and give me my 5 o'clock shots. The nurse comes in with a gun, and the next thing that I know, I'm running all around the hospital trying to stop her from giving me a syringe. And I didn't know, like I said before, and like I've at least said 2 more times, what to make heads or tails of whenever I wake up in the bathroom. And that's exactly what happened. I woke up in the bathroom. While waking up in the bathroom, as we all do, sometimes we all go to sleep in the bathroom. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I remember sometimes wherever I go to work, and then I'm like, I got an idea. Watch this. Teacher, I have to go to the bathroom, and then I would go to the bathroom at work, and then I would stay there for 6 or 8 hours at a time, just getting paid to poop, you know? I mean, who doesn't want to get paid to poop? Especially taking pictures of it, then just being like, all right, I can claim this on my taxes. The next 3 events that took place were absolutely insane. I mean, you would have never guessed what would have happened. Whenever I walked into the bathroom. All of a sudden, the light turned out, and whenever I turned the light on, I was on a riverbank fishing with Shrek. You'll never guess what happened next. And honest to God, you'll never guess what happened next. Shrek tells me that there's a bounty on my head and that he wants to take it from me. So, he smacks me really hard, and after that, I fall face first into the water. And he told me, lighten up, it was just a bug, and it was on my head, and he just wanted to let me know about it. And the next thing I know, Darth Vader shows up, and I didn't know what to make heads or tails of. Darth Vader and Shrek are clearly not from the same universe, unless you count that whole Disney thing that happened a few years ago. Which I don't know what to make heads or tails of this entire conversation, let alone this entire encounter. So Darth Vader picks me up, and he uses the Force like you would, and the next thing I knew, I was a spaghetti noodle. I was in the water, and I was just trying to think, as a spaghetti noodle does, what exactly is it that could get me out of this situation? How exactly can I filter to myself as I was, rowing my boat gently down the stream, and as I was merrily, life is but a dream, trying to think what exactly or how exactly I could get myself out of this situation. And Darth Vader used the Force, and whenever he did, he forced me to smack him in the head. And the next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital, as one does when they're in the bathroom asleep. And I remembered that I had my password posted on Reddit. So, of course, I go into Reddit, my Reddit account, and I quickly deleted that episode. Oops. Oh my God. I quickly deleted that post that I made on Reddit. And afterwards, I remembered my password. So I started making my password so that I could reset it. And after that, I woke up. And after I woke up in the bank. And you'll never guess what happened next. I was in the bathroom at the bank. Over at the grocery store. Over at the Walmart. So I come out of the bathroom. I come out of the bank. And the next thing that I knew, they were all praising me. There was like 30 people in line, and they all wanted my autograph. So I asked them, what seems to be all the hoopla? What seems to be the big commotion? And some guy came up to me and he said, "Hi, Jimmy Jones here, and I'm the head of AA security." And then I'm like, "Well, that's great, but what's that got to do with me?" He said, "Ha ha 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 ha, you're really funny, kid. You don't remember? You were a spaghetti noodle in the river. You saved us all from drowning." And I was like, "I did?" And then he walked up to me, and his bodyguard walked up to me, and then he said, "Don't touch Mr. Jones again." But he touched me. He said, "What did I just get done saying?" And then I pointed at Mr. Jones when I said, "But he touched me," and this guy pulled out $50, right? And then he gave it to me, and then he told me, "Don't let it happen again, or else you're going to get another $50. And I thought to myself, maybe this guy's serious. Maybe I should back off. So, of course, I just walked away quietly because I didn't want $50. That's insane. I mean, I didn't read an ad on the internet that said come and get your $50 now, 1-800 free money. Like, this guy, there must be something seriously wrong with him. So anyway, I was shopping through the grocery store, as one does, trying not to use that $50 because I know that man can track me if I use his cryptocurrency. And I'm shopping in the grocery store whenever all of a sudden I see, with my prying eyes, a naked lady. And she walks in and she says, "Excuse me, ma'am." And then I said, "No, I'm a sir." She said, "Well, I couldn't tell with all your clothes on." And she tells me that there's a spill over in aisle 13. And I was like, okay. So I go over there and there's 2 bunny rabbits and they're having sex. And the next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital. And whenever I woke up, I was devastated to learn that the 2 bunny rabbits were not having sex, but they were indeed fighting. They were fighting over who gets the last pasta. But to me, it looked like Mr. Bunny Rabbit was groping Mrs. Bunny Rabbit. I didn't know what to think about that. So there was a journalist from the Washington Post who wanted to get my take on things that happened at the grocery store. So the journalist sat down, pen and paper in hands, whenever all of a sudden there's a crate, and I'm not kidding at all. There's a crate of snakes that just comes into the room, and then they're all asking me the same question at the same time. Next to me, there's a boom box, right? And the boom box is shaped like a candle, but it's got a tape in it. So of course, like one does whenever a boombox is beside of you, I pulled out a tangerine in my pocket that was in my pocket that I forgot to mention, and I took a bite of it. And then I set my apple down on the desk like one does, and then I asked the interviewer to repeat their question. And like one does, I picked up 1/2 of my watermelon and I started eating at it, whenever all of a sudden these snakes come in and they tell me that they like the strawberry that's sitting on the table. So I thought to myself, you know what? This guy's crazy. So I picked him up and I gave the snake to the reporter, and she smelled it and said that it smelled nice, and she put it in her pocket. So I'm just wondering where exactly the line is, because a lot of this heebie-jeebie stuff doesn't exactly make sense. But I told her that whenever the bunny rabbit looked like that the bunny rabbit was groping the bunny rabbit in the store, that's what it looked like to me, and I'm not sure how I ended up in the hospital. She said that I ended up in the hospital because I'm a hero, because that naked lady was about to get robbed, and she told me that I had saved the naked lady from getting robbed by pulling out my sausage and allowing the naked lady to see it. And the man who was about to rob the naked lady of everything that she had on her at the time, he ran away because he's intimidated by sausages that are bigger than his. So once the reporter told me the story, I went ahead on record from the Washington Post, and she wrote a story about a man with an extra extraordinary sausage and an extra extraordinary attitude. And the next thing that I knew, I had no bloomers on at all. and my socks came off, and the doctor came into the room to let me know that I have escaping sock syndrome, and I was always curious to know what that was, but I never really understood why it happens. But it happens whenever you don't put your socks in the dryer for more than 2 days. So he told me that he could write me a prescription for laundry detergent, and that I would have to take it to the dean's office at the college, and the dean would give me exactly what I needed. So I did just that. And the next thing that I knew, I seen the naked lady again. She's the dean that works at the college. So she helped me. But first, she said she read the paper about me saving her, and she wanted to see the sausage one more time. So of course, like you do, whenever a naked lady is in front of you, I pulled the sausage out, showed it to her, and that's all that happened. She wrote me a prescription. I went to the grocery store, and I got my laundry detergent, and 3 days later, I no longer had escaping sock syndrome. But now, I have another problem. Even though my socks don't escape me anymore, they don't run from me, and she told me to use it at least 2 days. But I had to use it for 3 days before my socks came back to the dryer. Yes, you're supposed to put laundry detergent in the dryer. And the next thing that I knew, I had lava coming out of my sink, and I didn't know where it came from. I thought that I had cleared up every crack, every nook, every cranny in my house to stop that from happening. So of course, like one does, whenever they have a problem with their plumbing, I called the government, and I let them know that I was unhappy rather, with my plumbing issues. And they told me that I would need to see a doctor that lives in the hills named Dr. Absence. So I had to go see Dr. Absence, and luckily enough, despite his confusing name, he was home. I thought for sure he would be absent. Walking up that grainy hill, though, you'll never guess what happened next. I encountered a mountain lion who talked to me and told me that next week's lottery numbers are 312-598-7712. And I looked at him, the tiger that was talking to me, and of course, like one does whenever a tiger is talking to you, I choked him, and after I choked him, I put him in the river. And then he turned to a spaghetti noodle. The next thing that I knew, I had to walk back up the mountain, and I seen with my own 2 eyes a woman with curly hair. And she told me that in order to gain access to Dr. Absence's house, or for that matter, even his office, I had to answer a riddle. And then she walked away. And I thought to myself, that's going to be difficult. I don't do good with poems. So, of course, like one does, whenever you're in the middle of the wilderness and you're in the desert without a horse, I had to keep walking. And whenever I did, I found a man who has curly hair who told me that whenever I go to the mountain that I was about to go to, even though I was almost halfway there, that I was going to have to stop at a gas station and get him a Red Bull. So, I stopped at that gas station, went in there, got him a Sprite, walked out, after I paid for it, of course. So, whenever they asked me for the money at the register, I gave the man the $50 that I'd previously gotten from not robbing the bank and saving the children from being molested. And the man gave me an IOU after I gave him his Dr. Pepper. And then I thought to myself, this is something that I will cherish forever because he owes me. And after going to the farmer's market, after climbing the hill, and for that matter, once I got to Dr. Absence's office, he wasn't there. The next thing that I knew what I had to do. So, I went to the clerk's office beside of Dr. Absence's office, and I went to the bathroom. And like one does, whenever you're in the bathroom, I closed my eyes, and I began to count to 10 while I was clapping my heels together, saying, "There's no place like home. There's no place like home." And wouldn't you know it, someone knocked on the door, and they told me that I was missing a yellow BMW, and it was outside, but someone stole my horse. And I thought, well, damn, I knew there was a reason I walked here. So, like one does, I opened the bathroom and told them to come in. And while they're washing their hands and I'm doing as you do in the bathroom, I was eating my watermelon from earlier. And the next thing I knew, I had a cantaloupe in my pocket. And like one does in the bathroom, whenever you have a cantaloupe in your pocket and someone else is washing their hands, I decided that it was a good idea to pull the mustard out of my pocket and put it in my socks. And when doing so, as you would guess, I had to dip my socks into the toilet at least 4 times. And then put my socks on my hands. And then walk on all fours. As though that I was a train. And instead of making regular car noises, I had to start making noises of that of a Canadian moose, because that's the only way that you would get home if you wanted to do that. The next thing I knew, I had 2 cantaloupes in my pocket and a ticket home. Whenever I stepped off of the bus that day, all of this could have been avoided. I wouldn't have to eat any cantaloupe. All I would have to do is save that cockroach from getting run over. And boy, did I miss out. Because despite the mustard, despite the Dr. Pepper, despite the cantaloupe, despite being hit in the head multiple times by Woody Woodpecker, despite the Burger King, the geriatric bullshit that happened to me whenever I was being arrested, getting bit by a snake, having some guy in the bathroom telling me that I've got the whole world in my hands, despite practically everything else that I'm failing to remember because I don't have any notes of it right here, and I'm trying to recollect it from memory. Despite climbing up the mountain and turning that tiger into a bowl of spaghetti, or one spaghetti noodle, all of this could have been avoided had I would have just looked at that cockroach as that dog got hit by a car one last time. Because the next thing I knew, I was in the bathroom. And like one does when they're in the bathroom, I was shredding the cheese that was in my pocket. And all of the Swiss cheese that was in my pocket kept accumulating into one big hunk of just natural cheese that I failed to get rid of last night. Whenever I looked in the mirror that day, the next thing I know, I seen Mario come out of that painting and look at me and say, "Here we go." And after that, Sonic said, "Did you see an Italian? Oh, wait, it's you again." And then after that, Sonic bowed to me, took my hand, and gave me the golden ring. And then gave me all 7 Chaos Emeralds. So of course, like one does, whenever you're in the bathroom with Sonic the Hedgehog, and he gives you all 7 Chaos Emeralds, you can only guess what I did next. I looked over at Sonic, and I told him that I bet my sausage is bigger than yours. And Sonic said, "Bet." And after that, he gave me his phone number, because my sausage was bigger than that of a teenage hedgehog's sausage. And his sausage, his dick, looked like that of a Smurf's, because it was all blue and gangly, you know. It's something that I wouldn't want to do again. But the next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital. And like one does whenever you wake up in the hospital, over the speaker that they had laying next to me, I heard the "Grandma gets run over by a reindeer coming home from our house Christmas Eve." And I thought to myself, that's odd. That's odd. Why is One Direction playing a song right now? So, of course, there's 2 monkeys and a termite that come into the hospital, and they start dancing. The 2 monkeys are doing a backflip, and the termite's eating up all of the tile on the floor. And I thought, something looks out of place here. So of course I smile at my mom, who's right beside of me, and she gave me $50. And I thought to myself, okay, she took that as an insult. That's on me. Sorry. But after I closed my eyes, and after I took a deep breath, those 2 monkeys started fighting and throwing shit at each other. And I had a cantaloupe in my pocket again. And the next thing I knew, I was in the bathroom again. And like one does whenever you're in the bathroom, I thought to myself, I was honestly thinking, I know what to do with this cantaloupe. So, I took the packet of ketchup out of my hands, out of my pocket, and I squirted it in my eyes and washed it with toilet water. Thank you all so much for joining me. This has been the Gut Wrench Podcast, episode number 65. Bunch of random bullshit. I know. The story didn't make a lick of sense, probably. But you want to know what the good news is? The good news is that the good news is, you know, at the beginning of this episode, I did say that I wouldn't really drone on and on and on about Kevin Owens, and I'm not going to do that right now. Don't worry. This episode shows you how inconsistent someone can be, yet how entertaining that same person can be. If Kevin Owens was even half as entertaining as I was today, but, you know, just as inconsistent, then maybe I wouldn't have such an issue with him. The inconsistencies that were depicted in this story. Well, if a lot of you are keeping track, see how many inconsistencies you can spot. The entire story is inconsistent, let's be honest. But not the point. The point is, Kevin Owens is this inconsistent a lot. And if you're laughing at me right now, you should laugh at him because he's just as big of a clown. Only difference is, I'm a lot more consistent. And even though I broke my own rule, you know, kind of, oh, I promise I'll always be consistent. And then this gets, you know, this right here is like a wrench thrown in my plans as far as consistency goes. Sorry about that. Someone just walked into my house, and if I was to continue talking, they would think that I was talking to them, you know, because I'm in a dark room talking to myself, and the front door is like right beside of me. Thank you all so much for joining me. This has been episode number 65 of the Gut Wrench Podcast. Sorry if it sounds like that I'm whispering. My voice is very dry right now. Thank you all so much for joining me. That's a wrap. Have a good night. No, I'm not going to talk about sex clones. Why would I talk about that? You just come in here and then start talking about, yeah, I get it. It's the new Star Wars parody. That's really funny. Star Wars XXX, the sex clones. Oh boy. Yeah. No, I'm not going to make fun of Disney Plus. Why would I do that? It doesn't make any sense. Why would I? You know, if I had a subscription service, it would be called the Gut Wrench Plus. No, I'm not going to make fun of fat girls. What is it with you and Plus? You want to make fun of plus-sized women, and then you want to make fun of Disney Plus. Just close the show. You stupid. Damn, I'm not looking for a lawsuit. Thank you all so much for joining me. My name is Mocha. This has been the Gut Wrench Podcast. That's a wrap. Good night, everybody.